Did you know that 1 in 100 people suffer from depression? Many of them consider suicide. 14 in 100 people are crippled with anxiety or fear. Alcohol and drug abuse continues. Divorce and domestic abuse continues, with the children paying the greatest cost. 60 in 100 people profess they don't know Jesus. For these reasons and more, Pamela Christian brings you Faith to Live By to explore life issues from the Christian perspective to help you gain the victory to live the abundant life available through faith in Jesus Christ.
Hi, I'm Pam Christian, your host right here on Faith to Live By. Each and every week I bring you a program that tackles a topic, a problem really, a real life issue that I want to help you avoid if I can, and if not, help you better get through it. My goal is to also help equip the church to better minister to those who are in need. The Bible encourages Christians not to be unequally yoked. That's where one person is a committed Christian and the spouse or business partner is not. Now, it seems to me it would be a whole lot easier to be in business with an unbeliever as a committed Christian than it would be to actually be married to an unbeliever. Are you married to an unbeliever? Do you know someone who is? If so, I'm confident that today's program will encourage you greatly. Watch this upcoming video and hear the testimony of Deneen Miller.
Hi, my name's Deneen Miller, and like many Christian women out there, I'm also married to someone who doesn't share my faith. I love God with all my heart, and I pursue Him daily, and I love my husband. And I've learned through the years that the key is just to trust God, and I've given my marriage to Him, and I've also asked Him to show me how to see my husband through His eyes and how to love my husband like He does. 30 plus years later, I'm so thankful to say that I have a thriving, wonderful marriage by the grace of God. It took a lot of commitment, trust, prayers, but God is so faithful. And that's one of the reasons why Lynn and I wrote our book together, Winning Him Without Words, because we wanted to share that message. We wanted to share the wonderful things that God has taught us through the years. And I know it will encourage you as well. And I'd also like to thank Pam for touching on this subject on our program. It's so appreciated because it's a message that so many need to hear. I think the most liberating part of the whole journey has been to find out that I wasn't alone. And I pray that you will make that discovery too, because you're not. Have a good day. Bye.
The burden for Deneen was very evident in her testimony. It's not an easy road, and it is something that the church needs to better address. In some research for today, I learned that 3 different pastors from 3 different Midwestern states conducted their own similar surveys in the years from 1958 to 2010. From their efforts, we learned that, and this will be on the screen for you with an image, our youth are increasingly marrying non-Christians. In the first survey, it was 55%, then it jumped to 73%, then to 85% respectively. We also see that the vast majority of our youth who marry non-Christians leave the faith. In 1958, that was 72%, then it jumped to 80%, then to 75% respectively. We also find that very few who marry non-Christians are ever able to convert their spouses. Again, those numbers were 17% in 1958, 14%, and only 5% in the most recent study. And finally, we learned that these statistics bear out exactly what one would expect them to bear whenever we would consider 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33. If you or someone that you love are in a spiritually mismatched marriage, then you know the very deep and real hardships involved. And I'm going to help you renew your hope for your marriage and your relationship with my studio guest today. She is Pastor Lynn Donovan, who is a Bible study teacher, leader, and national speaker who writes for the online group called Spiritually Unequally Marriage, a website that she founded in 2006. Lynn also contributes articles to several online venues specific to marriage. She works in women's ministries at her local church and has co-authored the book entitled Winning Him Without Words. Her co-author is Deneen Miller, the woman whose testimony you heard just a moment ago. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you so much, Pam, for having me. I'm really delighted that I get this chance to encourage all those people, the statistics, shout to that are in these kind of marriages.
Right.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And those statistics are people, and that's what I really like to point out. They're not just numbers. These are people with hurts and emotions and, well, a lot of things that we'll go over today. Now, you and your coworker, Deneen Miller, you're both Christians who are married to non-Christians. However, your husbands know all about your ministry and even support your ministry. They are appreciative of you helping other couples in the same situation. That's unique.
It is unique and very astonishing, and I like to call it one of Jesus's little miracles for both of us. Yeah.
Well, before we get into the help that you offer, let's unpack some of the myths and some of the truths about people who are married to unbelievers. The Apostle Paul told some of the brethren in Corinth to remain with their mates who were not Christian. We can read that in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 10 to 17. If the unbelieving spouse is willing to stay married, then the believing spouse is to stay married. Given the realities of the pagan culture in Corinth at the time that the Apostle Paul wrote this, I believe that the couple married with both being unbelievers initially and later one spouse having learned about Christianity and coming to the faith. But because they are married, the Apostle Paul instructs them to remain married. Marriage is to be held in high esteem. Two unbelievers marrying one another and then one converting to the faith could easily happen today. The real rub in the church is when Christians knowingly marry a non-believer. In fact, some Christians believe that it's a sin for a Christian to marry a non-believer. As Kenneth E. Thomas wrote in his article entitled, "Must a Christian Marry a Christian?" published in Truth Magazine, he wrote, quote, "If it is a sin for a Christian to marry a non-Christian, how does one go about repenting of said sin? Must they divorce without a scriptural cause?" And then he writes, "Two wrongs do not make a right." What do you say to this, Lynn?
I agree. Two wrongs do not make a right. I believe that the Lord wants us to honor our marriage vows, and he also wants us to pursue him, and he is all about family. Mm-hmm. We're in a family, and so he's so concerned about how, the family is portrayed, and our faith brings so much into that marriage relationship, into our family, to really, it can realign everything. And I've seen that. I'm living proof. So,
well, and as I said, the Apostle Paul, and as Kenneth wrote in his article, the Apostle Paul esteems marriage. Marriage is to be esteemed. And one of the reasons is that marriage is ordained by God as the highest order of an earthly relationship to give us some insight as to what kind of a spiritual relationship we can have with God the Father.
Right.
So no wonder marriage is to be esteemed.
Yep.
Now, I have to ask you the obvious question. Were you a Christian when you married your non-believing husband?
So I was a believer. I was raised in church. I was a Sunday school girl, and I think I really had more of a relationship with church instead of the vertical one going on. And so in my 20s, I took this rebellious path into the badlands of the prodigal nation, and it was in that season that I met my unbelieving spouse at the time. And Pam, that's a very common thing that I see happen a lot of our readership now, is they were in a time where they were far away from God, even though they knew in their heart Jesus, but it just wasn't clicking for some reason. Like myself, I found myself in this season where God did not matter as much, and I met this man, we fell in love and got married, but it was 3 years later that Jesus really started to plead to my Sunday school girl heart, and I went running back to the Father with his arms wide open.
What kind of an impact did that have on your husband?
Well, that was when I learned, he's not so keen about this new man in my life, and we had a lot of conflict, It was confusion because I'm trying to return to my faith, and he's just not going to have anything to do with it. So we worked through a lot of conflict, especially in the early years of our marriage.
He used to be committed for that. He really is.
Yeah.
Well, because we know it's very unwise, and probably in the majority of cases being spiritually mismatched causes untold grief and loss of well-being from a spiritual point of view, some people have actually misused scriptures in an attempt to instruct Christians not to marry unbelievers. What are some of the examples of scriptures that people have thrown at you that have actually been hurtful?
Well, like do not be unequally yoked. That is, that's 2 Corinthians 6:14. Do not be yoked together with an unbeliever. That's the first one we all get, and Did you know he was an unbeliever when you married him? I mean, those things really cast condemnation on us when we're already in a kind of challenging situation and we're looking to our church family to help us and build us up. And they're not meaning to be insensitive, but it comes across that way. And I mean, there's a whole host of other scriptures that say, separate yourself, or, do not join with
even the Old Testament. God always is telling the Israelites not to marry people who worship other gods.
Yep.
So, this is a long-standing commandment, if you will, from God.
It is.
But the condemnation is of no help.
It's of no help because we're already in it. Mm-hmm. And I feel that God, like when you say, forgive me, I made this mistake, it is far as the east is from the west, buried at the deepest ocean. Like he forgives the second we ask. We're the ones that hold condemnation, and we get condemnation about some of the choices we've made. We do have consequences to live with, but those, with Christ, we can do all things,
Right. What would you like to see the church do differently, since you've walked this walk and you went to the church to try to find help in the matter you found yourself in?
Right.
What are some of the things that the church could do differently?
Well, I think the first thing is to see them as we feel different because we're actually married people but single at church. And so maybe it's a little bit more inclusion because things are very couple-oriented. Bible studies to help women walk through this. We have very specific needs and issues. Just a word of understanding, and that I will be, I'm right here with you. And those are the big things that we would like to see. And the thing is, I think so many of us, when we start walking this road, and we've been in it for a while, we become these powerful prayer warriors. I mean, let's let the pastors tap into that. We want to serve. Every person that I know that is unequally yoked wants to serve in their church body. Plug us in, man. We're hard workers because we get a lot of what we're not getting at home through our church family.
Right. That would be very important. I can see that. Allow you to be engaged with the church culture would really help feed you in an area that you're not getting from your spouse.
Right.
Well, in your book, you write that you're happily married to your best friend, and many would wonder how that's possible since you can't really share your spiritual life with your husband. How is that?
Well, I look at it like this. My husband and I have come through a lot, and we had to work through conflict and different opinions and come to a mutual place where we have mutual respect and love. Are there places I wish that, could he join me at church on Sunday? Yeah, that hurts, and it's hard. Everybody that's walked through this knows how difficult it is to take that first moment and step into a church by yourself. But I found over the years, and this would be such a great word to encourage people, is that everything that's missing that you wanted from your marriage, Jesus will fill it in. All those broken, open spaces, Jesus just comes in and he fills it in with other things that fill your soul and give you hope. And your faith just changes the atmosphere of your home and in your marriage.
What do you say to women who ask you what to do when their husband is critical of their faith?
That's a hard one because it's painful. And first of all, you have to go, okay, I don't let it wound you. And I think it's appropriate to say, hey, hun, let's not go down this road. There are moments where I think you win them without words, and your actions absolutely speak louder than your words, and how you love on them. And then there's times where you need to set down some boundaries and have mutual love and respect. And I think you do those too, and that's where you come into this thriving zone in this kind of marriage.
These are hopeful words for a lot of people who are watching. Okay, now let's transition a little bit and talk about some of the challenges or flashpoints of conflict that occur being married to an unbeliever, and offer some specific hope or guidance to my audience. And I'll have us go over a few of them. You have 10 in your book,
right,
but let's go over a few of them. The Apostle Paul was very clear about that in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, 13 to 14, explaining that unbelieving spouse is sanctified. Therefore, their children are sanctified as well. Let's talk about that point.
I love this verse, Pam. This is like the power verse for every person who is spiritually mismatched. This verse, I think it could be farther reaching than we've ever considered. Because what does sanctified mean? It means to be made holy. It means that you are chosen by God. I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean it grants them salvation? I don't know that it means that, but let me tell you that your faith And your prayers coming into that marriage,
into the family as well,
and the children, absolutely, they are covered, first of all, with protection. They are favored by God because you are praying over them. You can change the atmosphere. You can bring angels in by your prayers, and you can bring your husband and have him ask God to surround him with friends, male friends that will talk to him about faith. There are so many things that verse offers, and it's one of my favorites. I know it by heart.
Yeah, certainly. Well, another issue is to trust your spouse to God. Let go and not be the Holy Spirit.
Oh, yeah.
And not be concerned, not live in fear about your husband's eternal life. And fear, we know, is of the enemy. And when we succumb to fear, we are actually inviting the enemy to be at work in our marriage or in our families. So talk about one of those flashpoints as you do from your book.
I think for me, I had huge flashpoints of going to church, and another big one when you're in a family like this is how to raise the children. And, I talk a lot about that in the book. How do you go to church, and how do you, there's some things that you just have to stop manipulating. And let me tell you, I tried them all. Manipulation, fighting, arguing, trying to get him in the door any way possible. And when I finally just said, it's all okay, I'm going to let him be him. God, you've got him. You love him more than I do. You want his salvation more than I do. And when I finally did that and didn't take it back, this new peace settled within our marriage. And it was wonderful for him.
Good input.
Because he's under pressure and feels it too. And you are too. And so when you just it's okay. I can trust God. He is trustworthy with this man, with my marriage, with my family.
Another point that you make, and you refer to them as flashpoints, is praying the most dangerous prayer. Now, before I read your book, I had a feeling I knew what type of a prayer this was, and after I read the book, I was right. But would you please explain what makes this particular prayer so dangerous?
I just think that when you say, okay, God, do whatever it takes to save this man, be in our marriage, and it is like really releasing control, that you are going to trust God, that he will do whatever it takes. And that means you have to trust God because you're going to walk through it with him, whatever that might be. And I'm not saying inviting disaster into your marriage or into your home, but there might be some hard things that you have to go through because God's trying to get his attention.
I actually prayed that prayer myself in the early 1990s, and I remember where I was standing. I remember what I was feeling. I remember my words. I remember the gestures that I made while I was praying. And I said to the Lord, do whatever it takes to get through to my husband. Now, he was a Christian, but there were some other issues. And I said, do whatever it takes to get through to my husband. We have had one long-term answer to that prayer, including serious financial hardships, including my having a sudden cardiac arrest. I died, and I was revived. This was a way for the Lord to let my husband know what his life could be like without me. It did help. I would not like to go through that again, but that is the most dangerous prayer, and yet it is one of the most surrendered, best prayers that we can actually utter.
Amen. Amen.
Well, I read an article by a young man whose father was Muslim and his mother was Christian, and he explained how difficult this was for him as their child. At one season, they would go to the mosque on Friday nights and at church on Sunday mornings, and the more his father and mother got into their respective faiths, the more they wanted to be more engaged and more involved, and it became very difficult for the son. In fact, he ended up choosing the Christian faith, and he felt a sense of betrayal to his own father. He said that people base their religious lives on what they honestly believe to be true. I mean, no parent bases their life on a lie intentionally, right? And no parent wants to see their child make a poor choice.
Right.
So raising children has got to be one of the most difficult aspects of being unequally yoked.
It's terrifying. I remember sitting in my kitchen, and it was time to put my daughter into school. And she's going to be 5 and going into kindergarten. And I had always handled her preschool. And so I just thought she's going to go into a private Christian school. My husband was like, we are not doing that. And so all through public high school, and a big public high school, and all the way through in California. And my daughter, when it was time to choose college, it was her choice finally. And all the faithful years of just living it out in front of her and praying and covering her, she chose to go to a Christian college for her 4-year education. And I just see the faithfulness of a mom and the faithfulness of Jesus, and just your faithfulness pouring into that child. It's not so much what we say, but it's what we do. And teaching her everyday prayer. We would drive to school and she'd be next to me and I'd just put my hand on her and we'd just pray on the way to middle school, which was really hard. I was modeling everyday interaction with Christ. And that is what's going to make a difference. And your kids one day will choose their faith for themselves, but with your love and your prayer and your covering, they will choose, based on what they've seen. And it is the faithfulness of God. I absolutely believe in that. I've seen it lived out. I've seen that in Denine's kids.
And I think that what we pointed out earlier is that your husband has been supportive of you being in ministry. He ultimately has become supportive of you being a Christian because it's no longer a burden or a tax in your marriage relationship. Now, I want to ask about your daughter. Is she as connected with her dad as she is with you?
She is, and she would tell you the same thing, that it's difficult when you have two parents that don't see it eye to eye, and there is conflict, and they don't know always how to process that, and we don't always do the best job on giving them permission. It's okay. Your dad doesn't get it. It's okay,
And that's not said in a disrespectful way.
No.
It's to mean to say that he doesn't understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And they do feel the conflict. And that's why I say it's better that they see you live it out. When your faith is vibrant and you are in love with Jesus, they can't help but catch it.
Right.
They can't.
Right. Well, now, in light of truth and in light of wanting to help people who are burdened with being unequally yoked, in light of encouragement, would you look right into your camera and speak to those who are watching that are really connecting with your story?
I just want to say you can do this. With the power and love of Jesus Christ, you can walk through this. Every conflict, everything that's difficult, you can do this. Get into the Word. Have prayer time. Listen to the Lord. He is going to direct you on when to have conflict and when to let things go. He's going to teach you about forgiveness. And this life that I've walked, I have such a vibrant, amazing relationship with the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And it really was birthed because of my husband's questions. In the very early years, he would ask me, and I didn't know my faith that well. And man, it made me get in there and learn about the Word. So I just bless you to receive this. 1 Corinthians 7:14, that you are sanctified, you sanctify your family. You have so much to bring to your marriage, and you will find that you can triumph and live in a thriving marriage.
Thank you so much for being here today, Lynn. I really appreciate it. I know you're helping a lot of people in my audience, and I want to help people get a copy of your book for themselves, or maybe someone that you love that is in an unequally yoked marriage. And I have a copy of the book on the screen right now so that you can see the cover, and I'll definitely have your book added to my Faith to Live By website,
Thank you.
Along with some resources from me. And I think you said that there was something you wanted to do too with respect to your book.
I think I would like to give away 5 copies.
Yay!
So please, we'll get them sent out to you, 5 copies of our ebook. They can go anywhere. And so
Not exactly anywhere. Let me kind of tie this up a little bit. The first 5 people who email me, and I'll provide you the email address a little bit later on the show, the first 5 people who email me in the continental United States can receive a copy of the book. I can't ship outside the United States.
Oh.
Okay? So we'll do it that way. And when I can ship outside the United States, I will. But for right now, the first 5 of you who email me will be entitled to a copy of her book, which is Winning Him Without Words, right here. All right, that was great. I want to thank you so much for doing that. My members can get a copy of your book so easily. Now, the address I want you to have, and again, this is for the first 5 of you, is Faith to Live By at PamelaChristianMinistries.com. A little long, but you'll remember it. Faith to Live By at PamelaChristianMinistries.com. I'll be looking for the first 5 of your emails and sending you out a book soon. Also, if you want to watch this program again, or if you know someone who's unequally yoked that would benefit from the program, don't forget that you can watch the program in the archives. It's very simple to do right there on your screen. And if someone wanted to contact you, Lynn, what would be the best way for them to do that?
They can find me at spirituallyunequalmarriage.com. That's spirituallyunequalmarriage.com. It's another long one, but find me there. There's a great community there.
And we'll have the information on the screen for you as well, and on my website. Don't forget, you can always go to Faith to Live By and look up the things that you've seen or heard about here on the show. Well, thanks again, Lynn. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Pamela. It's a joy to be here.
Good, good. Well, this brings me to another close of another edition of Faith to Live By. And I want to ask you, have you been watching this show for a while without letting me hear from you? Well, that's a lot like having somebody in your home without even acknowledge them, right? I want to hear from you. You can use my Facebook page. It's really simple. It's at Faith to Live By TV, or you can also contact me through my main website, my main website, which is PamelaChristianMinistries.com. And I especially want to know more about you so that I can produce programs that are truly meeting your needs. Let me hear from you. Let me know what's on your heart, what's on your mind. Let me know some of the issues, the real life issues that you're dealing with, or maybe someone you love is dealing with. And I ask you again to go to the Facebook page and answer the 10 questions that I have on the screen. I've posted those questions so that I can know more about you in an easy fashion. Now, if you don't want to use the Facebook interface in order to let me know the answers to those 10 questions, you can again send me an email at faithtoliveby@PamelaChristianMinistries.com. Now, remember, I have a ton of resources for you and featured products on my website at the best prices that you can get anywhere. I don't ask you to give any donations to my show directly. Rather, I ask you to support by purchasing the products that you see on the Faith to Live By website. So again, it's faithtoliveby.com, where you'll find the books, the products, the resources, the websites of my guests, and a whole lot more. This will also help me with the cost of this ministry by you purchasing materials, and that gets some good resources into your hands, okay? So go ahead and go to faithtoliveby.com and shop around to your heart's content. And I want to thank you for watching, and I ask you that you tell others about Faith to Live By. You can see it each and every week live, or go through the archives and watch some of the previous shows. And again, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about any topics that you want to recommend and that you think would be good for this program. Now, Lynn, we have a little bit more time than I was expecting. How about some closing remarks, once again, for encouragement to those who are in a marriage that is spiritually mismatched?
I would just say that get into your word, and the best thing you can do is create time with the Lord alone. Get out a journal. I started reading a daily Bible, and it was so helpful just to get the word in, because you're going to come to those moments when you have conflict with your husband or conflict in the world in general. And when you have the word within you, that's when you're going to come back with the right answers, the right responses, and you're going to respond in peace and love, joy. And so allow yourself the word to come in, and then journal. Talk to God. He's going to give you strategies, and he's going to tell you how to pray for the day and how to, handle conflict, how to bless your children. And that's what I would say.
Okay. All right. Well, another reminder that my guest, Lynn, has agreed to give 5 copies of the book away. The first 5 of you who send me an email at faithtoliveby@PamelaChristianMinistries.com with the topic Winning Him in the subject line. I forgot to mention that earlier. Winning Him in the subject line, then I'll know that you're writing specifically to get the book. First 5 of you, faithtoliveby@PamelaChristianMinistries.com with Winning Him in the subject line in the continental United States. Okay, now, signing off, I want to ask you again to remember that Christ died for us. The very least we can do is live for Him.
Amen.
Bye-bye for now.
The preceding program was brought to you by the Holy Spirit Broadcasting Network, HSBN Television.